I want to talk about the monetary and fiscal policies that the CBK pursues in Kenya. Many times you hear people complaining in the market that, oh, there's no money in circulation, customers don't have money, we are really struggling in sales. And you always wonder, what are they talking about? There's no money in circulation. Well, what they mean is that the customers, that is the population, appears to be not having the physical cash to do purchases. And so the whole economy struggles because no one seems to have money. You very well know that 60% of the population of Kenya is extremely poor. And so you always sit and wonder, why is the situation like this? Every time you talk to the traders, they're complaining there's no money in circulation. Do they have a point? Or are they just making up stories? Well, what you may not know is that they do actually have a point. That there is something called monetary policy that comes out of CBK, which is an arm of the government, right? Now, CBK determines the amount of cash within the economy. So, one of the things that we have to start with is for you to understand that CBK and the entire system doesn't work in our interests, okay? They act in the best interests of foreigners. And I really mean that. I'm not just saying that for the sake of saying that. And you'll see the way the policies they enact, they always do so to protect foreign interests. They never act to protect our interests. And this is very historical, and they've been doing this for a very long time. Because as you very well know, poverty in Kenya is artificial. It's artificially induced. Like, let's put it in this way. In nature, there's natural growth for everything. Everything in nature grows. Everything. If you have 2 chickens and you leave them alone, when you come back, you'll find that they have baby chickens. If you come back after a longer time, you'll find that from the 2 chickens that you started with, you now have 100 chickens. If you start with 1 tree, you'll end up with a forest. If you leave it alone, it will produce fruit, and the fruit will become more trees. So nature clearly shows that there's natural growth. Growth has to happen. If you leave everything alone, it will multiply. But somehow, the poverty in Kenya is endemic. It never ends. People never seem to accumulate wealth. So that's why you need to understand that poverty in Kenya is artificial. It's an artificial construct. In order for you to have generation after generation of poverty, you need to intervene within the natural system in order to prevent the natural growth that comes from just being alive. You know, the small-scale farmer who had 2 chickens, after 10 years, he should have 500 chickens. How can people remain poor generation after generation after generation? If you had 2 cows, after 10 years, you should have 10 cows. But that somehow, it never happens. It's the same thing with business. You started as a small-scale trader. Over time, we expect you to have natural growth. That you started with a stock of maybe 100,000 shillings. Over time, we expect you to grow your business and maybe the value of your stock to go to 1 million shillings after 10 years. But somehow, that never happens. The person in the kiosk remains in the kiosk their whole life. They never graduate from the kiosk into a supermarket. Ever. They start in the kiosk, 20 years, you go back there, they're still stuck in the kiosk. The natural growth process never happens. Why? Because there's an external intervention. And because we're talking about money, we have to talk about CBK. This external intervention is by CBK, okay, which controls the government policy when it comes to money. Now, the CBK doesn't answer to ordinary Kenyans. Usually, it answers to foreign interests. And you will see in the activities and every policy they enact is to protect the foreign interest to the detriment of the local interest, which is why the kiosk person never grows their business. Even if you leave them for 20 years, they never seem to grow. They are always stagnant. Okay, now look at this. So the local kiosk will complain there's no money in circulation. You go to town, people, traders, this and that, they all say there's no money in circulation. And that is the reality of it. So the CBK is supposed to supply the market with money, with the physical paper money and coins, the physical money. They're supposed to supply it, right? Now, historically, as your population grows, you're supposed to increase the money supply. Because if you started with 20 million people, for example, and you had, for example, 5 million notes and maybe 10 million coins, right, that you've supplied to the market in order to facilitate commercial activity, right? Now, after 10 years, your population has gone from 20 million to 30 million. The expectation is that you will increase the money supply because you have now new people, right? That is normal growth. After 20 years, your population is 40 million. So you're supposed to increase the money supply to cover all the economic activity by these 40 million people. But the CBK constrains the growth of money supply. They put brakes on it. So as the population increases, they refuse to increase the money supply. So automatically, you immediately know that some people will struggle to get their hands on physical cash because CBK is doing everything in its power to pump brakes, to put brakes on economic growth. This is deliberate policy. This is not a mistake. This is something that they do. Why do they do this? Because the priority is not you. The priority is the foreign companies. Okay? And I don't want to go into the issue of, they call them multinational companies, but they're not multinational. They're all owned by Mzungu. There's nothing multinational about them. The ownership is the same. They only call them multinational so that you don't realize that everything is owned by the same people and that you own nothing. I don't want to go into issues to do with these multinational companies because they do a lot of, dirty tricks like transfer pricing, tax evasion, using gimmicks and things. That will be outside the scope of what we are saying. We just want to concentrate on the role of CBK in starving Kenya of money. Now, you always ask, who controls these people? Now, according to the CBK, the amount of cash in circulation in Kenya as of February 2021 is 234 billion shillings. That's the amount of money that the population in Kenya holds in cash. And when they did this report, they were not very happy reporting that. So inside the CBK, you have a committee called the Monetary Policy Committee. And one of the things that they do is attempting to collect a lot of that money back. They're not happy that Kenyans have 234 billion shillings in cash in their pockets that they can use for commercial activities. So this process of collecting back money, they call it mopping up excessive liquidity. And that's in quotes. So you sit down and wonder, how do you claim that there's excessive liquidity when 60% of your population is surviving on less than 200 shillings a day? How can you say that there's excessive money in the population when you have these levels of poverty? Half of Nairobi lives in slums. But here's the CBK monetary policy claiming that there's excessive liquidity, that is money, in the market. And so they are trying to pull back some of that money. And they use various tricks to make sure that the market is always starved of money. Which is why you keep on hearing traders say that there is no money circulating in the market. And that is killing their business. So you can see, just from the CBK own words, They do everything in their power to pump brakes on growth of the economy. And many of you don't complain because half the time you don't know what they're talking about because they use all this technical jargon to confuse you. But all this is just called tricknology. These are just tricks. And they do this in order to protect the interests of the foreign companies working in Kenya. And I don't want to go into all the details because it will get even more technical and it will become very confusing. But just know that the monetary policy of Kenya is designed to keep you poor. We need more money in the market. We need more money in circulation. They need to produce more notes and supply the market with because people have commercial activity that they need the money for. And of course, there's always the issue of the cost of money. And who determines the cost of money? Who makes the decision that the interest rate should be 16%? And how do they reach that 16%? Whose instructions are they following in order to end up with that 16% or 18% or whatever percentage they charge the cost of money? But that's a different issue. That's a different video. I don't want to talk about this right now. The only thing that you need to know is that the poverty that you see in Kenya, when you see local small businesses not growing year after year after year, they never grow, they never seem to expand, they never seem to improve. What you should understand is that that is the result of deliberate policy. So that sometimes when you struggle in your business, in your small business, and you cannot understand when you're not growing, you blame many things. Sometimes you even blame yourself. But I want you to understand that there's a larger context of your life. There's a framework. There's a matrix or an invisible prison in which you exist. And the people who control that prison in which you exist as a prisoner, they have created a situation or circumstances that prevent you from succeeding in your small business. You opened a salon, you've been struggling. You can't even meet the rent and you can't understand why. Whatever business you try, it's always so difficult. Yes, there are so many people. You look around you, there's millions of people, but you're always struggling and you can't understand why you're always struggling. I want you to understand there's a monetary policy and a fiscal policy that is put out by the CBK. And many of these policies that they pursue are carefully designed to make sure that your business will never grow. You'll always struggle. So you should read some of these reports that they put out. And you should also learn to understand the jargon and to understand whose instructions they are following when they put out all these policies. These policies are meant to keep the population poor and under control. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Kenya's time has come. Our time has come. Your time has come. A time to succeed and not fail. A time to grow wealth and not poverty. A time to go up and not down. It's time for you to stop walking and drive your car. Stop renting and buy yourself a house. It's your time to get blessed. Join the CCV movement and together let us keep poverty and unemployment out of Kenya. Become a member today. Donate what you can. And remember that the CCV is the only political organization in Kenya that is squarely built upon Christian values, unlike the rest. We'll see you next time. Thank you.